Thank you, Bonnie.
Maybe we should introduce ourselves, Ellen.
Yeah, well, yeah, let's go ahead and start there. I know a few of you. I know most of you, I think, so far. I am Ellen Sassano, and I'm the long-range planner for Pitkin County. And Bonnie Giles is on the technical side here of this presentation and meeting. She is our administrative assistant extraordinaire. And then I'll turn it over to Cindy, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks. I'm Cindy Hubin. I'm the Community Development Director with Pitkin County, and hopeful that we'll get more participation on this master plan, but we'll just keep moving.
Oh. So then, hey, Boru, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Kevin too. So I mistakenly answered you before when you spoke to Kevin. My name is Kevin Baru. I'm a 7-year resident of Aspen. I've become involved in local politics based mostly because I'm a scientist and I'm really interested in the environmental issues. I really appreciate the work that's been put in by the staff to try and preserve the integrity of the original master plan, because in my personal opinion, and I was a White House Fellow for Environmental Science, there really is no environmental impact report that's been taken properly into account, because the environmental standards in the United States were changed 12 months ago. So any approvals or work that's been done, like in a 2012 study or a 2018 approval, is all out of date. And so preserving the integrity of the master plan, in my opinion, and the people who are fighting for that, is a really urgent issue.
Good.
Kevin, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
This is Cindy. You're saying that the environmental standards have changed.
Yeah, so the way that science works, very few people know how science works, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of complex parts. But so when you want to publish in a major scientific journal like Nature or Science, the two best journals in the world, you have to go by what's called the most recent consensus conference criteria. These criteria shift over time with shifting data. There's never been a bigger shift. I'm 70 years old. There's never been a bigger shift in any scientific field in my life than in environmental science. 12 months ago, the consensus conference raised the standards so high that all of the data that's currently being used, there is no study available. The heating of the West, the fires in the West, the drying of the Colorado River, the drying of the Roaring Fork, none of this has salient data in what's being done in the development of Aspen. So if this data is not taken into account, you have a potential disaster on your doorstep. So going slow and preserving the integrity of the original plan is a very important thing. And I'm really happy that I see people fighting for that, because there's a huge desire to go forward, whereas any scientist would tell you without the data, that could be a crippling mistake.
Interesting.
Whoops. Thank you, Kevin. My question would be, in our world of planning and doing these master plans that inform what the zoning will be and all the other rules and regulations for the county, are you proposing that we need to do, along with master plans, more of an environmental report?
Yes, you are absolutely part of a wider niche, which is the Western tract. When I was a fellow for the White House, I was the environmental fellow for the Western United States. So I'm really aware of these issues for this region. The West is a dynamically unstable ecosystem. The reason why they changed all the consensus criteria is we need updates that are radical right now, because the West next year, Colorado is going to have a really hard time with water and heat and smoke from the west. So yes, the master plan should come into close accordance with the consensus criteria that has been established in the United States, because it's vital for the survival of Colorado and Aspen.
Is there a way for you to succinctly send us that criteria?
Yes. Give me a second. I have to write something down.
Well, and we will have contact, and I do have a slide with our contact information that might be.
What? I'm sorry, I walked away. Say again?
I said, I do have a slide with our contact information, if that would be helpful, an email.
Yeah, yes, please do that, because I will absolutely send you the data so that you can make, I've gone to the meetings and I wait for 6 hours to talk for 3 minutes. And I've tried to bring this up, and I've talked to local people, and people say, well, they've got an environmental impact report. They don't have a relevant environmental impact report. It's so out of date that it's basically a rubber stamp without any kind of scientific input. But yes, I would be happy to send you the data.
Oh, thank you. And in this context, Kevin, we're looking at ways to use reporting, such as environmental reporting, to help us with a master plan, which is really the policy guiding document for the types of things that I think you're referring to, because you've obviously been following, all of the Pandora.
Yes, I went out and I walked the site. I went to both meetings. I gave as
Right.
much input as I reasonably could. I had such a small time to talk that it hasn't been as effective as it might. But actually, I believe this is an urgent issue, and I think it would behoove you, to get into a wider context, in the real context in which you situate yourselves.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll take a look at that criteria and how we can look at applying that, along with Joe Wells, you're next. But Joe, there's been more recent change in the state, I believe, in terms of what criteria needs to be included in master plans as well. So we will definitely look at all of that. So
I appreciate that. I really appreciate the fact that you listen to me.
thank you for participating.
I love Aspen. I'd love to preserve the beauty of it.
Thank you. Joe, do you want to introduce yourself?
Joe Wells, coordinator of the Castle Creek Caucus, which borders the planning area to the west. I think what I hear Ellen saying is that the east of Aspen caucus would not be expanded to include this full area. Is that correct?
Joe, if you look at the east of Aspen master plan to date, it's broken into 4 neighborhood groups.
Here, let me get the right map sorry for all the moving around here. Let me get that map.
And those 4 neighborhood groups don't all have caucuses. So the east of Aspen caucus is really just the valley floor from on Highway 82. So it does not include the other neighborhoods like Smuggler or Richmond Hill Ridge. So,
Right.
Yeah, that was clear from the document.
okay.
I thought perhaps the intention was to turn this entire area over to the east of Aspen caucus.
No.
I don't think it's realistic to think there'd ever be one caucus for this whole area, because it covers such a large area with some different interests and physical features. And So, yeah, no, the intent was never to try to make this all one caucus area, but the intent is to look at the whole area as one planning area for master plan purposes alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was the conclusion I had come to, but I just wanted to double check that.
Mhm. So thanks. And then I'm not sure that I see everybody, but Ben Dodge, are you next in line here?
Yeah, that sounds great, Ellen. Thank you. I'm using a bit of a different device than I normally would. How's the sound?
It's good.
All right, good. Yeah, Ellen, thank you. And Cindy, thank you. By way of explanation, introduction, I'm the director of 10th Mountain Division Hut Association. We operate a series of backcountry huts. We're a stakeholder in this effort and delighted to participate in it because the Fritz and Bobby Benedict huts are located up by Upland Smuggler Mountain, up by the Warren Lakes area. And so they are included in this master plan geographic overlay. And so we'd like to participate in the process. We're delighted to be here and I look forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you.
And Ben, how about the Bernard Hut?
Yeah, Cindy, good question. The Barnard Hut is definitely, it's on the backside of Aspen Mountain there. And it's more appropriate that the Braun huts speak to that. There's a whole host of issues, which quite honestly, the Braun Huts board and Morgan, who manages those huts, my peer there at the Braun Huts, they're going to be more equipped to really address those issues for those huts. They'll do a better job of it than I would. 10th Mountain has an interest because we take reservations for the Barnard Hut and other huts up there in the Braun system, but we're not as familiar with the issues as they are.
Oh, okay. I thought that one was 10th Mountain, but it's not. Okay. Thank you.
And then, great, thank you. And Kevin Warner, are you with us here? There you are.
Hey, Ellen, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you as well. I can't see myself, so I have no idea what you're looking at right now. Hopefully, you're actually seeing my face. Hey, I just wanted to sit in and listen and see what kind of what folks are thinking about this. I really wasn't intending to necessarily assert Forest Service thoughts and concerns or anything. Mainly just trying to hear a little bit about the public process that you are going through and learn a little bit more about what folks are thinking about the changes or the master planning. So.
Well, thanks. I can't see anybody else. Do we have any other participants? No, we don't. Okay. Well,
Well, Kevin Warner, this is Cindy, Ellen, if I could jump in.
absolutely. Yes, thanks.
The last time we were really involved with the Forest Service up in this area probably was when we did the Richmond Ridge Management Plan review and many other stakeholders along that ridge. So I think a lot of that will come up, a lot of those issues, travel management, county right-of-way versus Forest Service land, the uses along the ridge that are private and public. I think all of that will once again, come up for discussion. So thank you.
And remind me, Cindy, that planning process is at least or around a decade or so old, am I right? Or maybe, I can't remember for sure how long ago that was.
Yeah, Ellen's my memory. Ellen, what year was that?
Oh boy, I knew you were going to ask me. It's at least a decade.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's been a while. So, okay, cool.
It has,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
no,
We're working with outdated documents. And as the other Kevin pointed out, probably for our master planning purposes, we need to update a lot of criteria and take a look at the lay of the land, if you will, for what's happening up there relative to human use, wildlife issues, character issues, and seasonal use issues as well. So we've got there's a lot to discuss. And Ellen, I'm not sure if you want to jump in now since some of these folks have not been to previous meetings. In fact, Joe, you might have been, Joe, I don't think you came to our last one, but we have a red line version of the existing East of Aspen master plan, Independence Past master plan, online for everybody to take a look at. And it's our first crack at, redlining what's there. But I think, Ellen, you're getting enough good comments that we'll have to do additional red lines.
Yeah,
I actually reviewed that document rather than the clean one.
Right.
yeah, we figured some people would go cross-eyed trying to read the red line version, but and prefer a clean document. But others would like to see, who are more familiar with plans, would like to see the changes. So yeah, whatever works best for you is good with us. So thank you for taking the time, because it's a fairly lengthy document. Appreciate that. I have a full presentation that I'm not going to run through, because I think we have such a small crowd here that I'm not sure it's a benefit to everybody to look at every slide. But I think the purpose of this meeting really is to talk a little bit about process, so that for those of you who are not familiar with our master planning process, sorry, not starting from the beginning, I'm all cattywampus here. Yeah, so I was going to run through the process for review and adoption of master plans in the county, just so you have some idea of what we're looking at from here on out. And then I really wanted to focus on some of the recommended changes to the plan since 2003, and some comments that we've received since our last meeting on August 12th. Add those in. But really, Kevin suggested that in a lot of these meetings, there's no time for people to actually speak and weigh in, and we really want to make the focus of this meeting your input. So we've done introductions, and I will move forward. I'm going to, well, basically this slide is just alluding to the fact that we have a lot of master plans in Pitkin County. By state statute, we're required to develop master plans. And this master plan in particular, the East of Aspen Independence Pass plan, was last adopted in 2003. So a lot of things have changed since then. And we're working, since 2014, we've been working on updating all of the plans that we have in the county. And these on the right side of your screen in blue are the ones that we have remaining, that we are still working on an update to. And East of Aspen, as you can see, is one of 4 that we have remaining. So far, if you go to our webpage, which I will cite at the end for you, for those of you who haven't been there, what we have completed is the existing conditions report for the East of Aspen plan. And that's really just, again, speaking to Kevin's initial comments, to making sure that we have developed a current baseline for the area in terms of growth, in terms of environment growth, road capacity, and the like. And we use that baseline data to develop recommendations based on capacity and current needs and issues. So in terms of process, the way this works is we upfront, we post our redlined version of the draft plan, and then get as much public input as we can, and then schedule a preliminary informal review at our Planning and Zoning Commission in a work session format. We then move into a work session at the Board of County Commissioners just to update them. And then we will schedule a formal public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission for adoption. Our goal is to get as much public outreach throughout that process as we can. It's kind of a challenge these days with COVID and our ability to see people and talk to people and touch people in person. No, we don't touch them, but we're not going to focus on any one particular property or development proposal in this meeting, but we are going to have time for discussion. I think we've looked at I'll run through the planning area description quickly for those of you who may not be familiar. On the west side, the planning area boundary goes up to the Richmond Ridge, basically, essentially. And on the east side of the ridge is the east of Aspen planning area, and on the west side of the ridge is the Castle Creek area here that Joe Wells is representing tonight. And this is the city of Aspen. The planning area includes the Smuggler Hunter Creek area here, here's the valley floor there. And Taggart's Lake West is the east of Aspen Caucus area. Here's the Independence Pass Highway 82 road. And you come through the Taggart's Lake West area to the upper portion of Independence Pass, and that's called the Taggart's Lake East area. And then on the west, and this area on the western edge of the planning area is referred to as the Aspen Mountain Richmond Ridge area. And because, and I think as most of you know, the Aspen Mountain ski area is generally in this location. So the bulk of the area, which is 112,000 acres in size, is federal lands. About 108,000 acres of the area is in federal ownership, and then about 4,000 acres, mostly along Independence Pass Valley floor here, and in this lower portion of Hunter Creek is the private lands in the area. Any questions about the boundary? You have such a small group. Great. Okay, and so again, existing land use here, most of it, again, is federal lands, the green color, and the yellow is representing primarily residential use, and again, along the valley floor up Independence Path and up here in the valley floor for Hunter Creek is where most of the residential use exists. And then you have the ski area in this location. And the brown just represents all the mining claims up on the western portion of the area. Zoning is an important element here because there's several changes that are recommended in the plan relative to zoning. So quickly, most of the federal lands here, this green on the outskirts is rural remote zoning for the backcountry area. The AR10 is where most of the existing residential use exists along the valley floors. Here again, there's some that travels up beyond the valley floor here. And then there's also, again, AR10 up in this Hunter Creek Valley area. And ski rec for the ski area, ski recreation zoning exists there. We did a build out analysis, updated the build out analysis, I should say. And basically that's just looking at the potential for development based on zoning in the area that we just looked at. And basically the area it's about, if it were to develop to its absolute maximum allowed under zoning, there'd be about 55 units, development units left, residential units left to develop. As a practical matter, based on historic trends, that would be more the likely development, about 33 units. Kind of planners speak. I'm not sure how many of you are interested in build out, but that information is available in our existing conditions report. So to the changes, the modifications that have been made to the plan since 2003, these are the categories that have primarily been addressed. And we'll go into a little bit of detail in these next slides. Starting with zoning. Overall, the overarching theme in this area has not changed. As is true in most of our planning areas, preserving rural residential character, including the environment and visual qualities, is an overarching theme. And that's throughout the county and here as well. I'd say that's probably the primary direction of zoning still. One of the zone districts that's received a lot of attention over recent years and including several development applications that have come in is the rural remote zone district, which is really intended to preserve the backcountry areas in the county. And there's a lot of that district in this planning area, as I pointed out earlier. And there's the district has been in place for a while now. And now that we have some understanding of how the district is functioning, there are some recommendations just to ensure that the intent of that zone district continues to be achieved. And there are some recommendations for changes to the zone district to ensure that intent is preserved. And basically the intent is to preserve the natural environment and its resources, at the same time allowing for some limited recreational uses and allowing for limited residential development. At the same time preserving the small scale backcountry character and lifestyle. And it's important to say retaining undeveloped areas. And allowing for the transfer of development rights to areas that are more appropriate for development. So it's a multifaceted zone district, and it's actually been pretty successful in achieving most of its intent, but we want to make sure that trend continues. So there's several recommendations in the plan that are specific to the rural remote zone district, and I won't go into all of them. But there are a few listed on the screen here relating to the impacts of ski recreation uses on adjacent rural remote zoning. And again, the rural remote zoning, as you can see here, is extensive. And here's the ski rec zone district, which is adjacent to both rural remote and the AR10 zone district. The resource government zone is a zone district that was established in 2006 as a result of recommendations in several of our master plans in 2003. And basically that zone district is intended to rezone public lands. Kevin Warner, I don't know if you're familiar with this recommendation or not, but basically it's intended to rezone those federal, really all public lands, including federal lands and county and state lands, to preclude residential development and ensure that the zoning reflects the resource conservation use that exists today. And we've had some recommendations that this zone district be implemented. We established it, but haven't actually overlain it on public lands yet. And the Forest Service hopefully will work with us on that. There's also a recommendation to rezone parcels on the face of Aspen Mountain and to include several uses, including low density, low intensity, open space, recreational, rural and remote, transitional residential and ski reg zone districts. Sorry, that's a mouthful, isn't it? So this slide begins to speak to why we asked Joe Wells to participate in the Castle Creek Caucus as a whole. It's become evident as a result of land use applications and reviews and development pressures over the last several years that we really need to acknowledge the land use connection between the Richmond Ridge area to the east of the ridge, which is this east of Aspen planning area, and the Castle Creek area on the west side of the ridge. As a practical matter, the Richmond Ridge East area contains backcountry residential use, informal recreation uses, and commercial recreation in the ski area here. And the Castle Creek side, really, it also includes a lot of, it includes rural residential use and informal recreational uses, but it also provides a lot of access to the eastern side and the uses on the eastern side of the ridge. And it's just become evident that we need to really consider that relationship and include, look at zoning or other land use regulations to acknowledge and address the unique characteristics and that relationship. We're not quite sure what that looks like yet, but at the very least, we hope to have some consistency between both the Castle Creek Master Plan and the East of Aspen Master Plan as relates to that unique relationship. There are a couple of recommendations that we've had recently on that particular topic, and those are very recent. Basically, these have primarily come from, well, all of these have come from folks on the west side of the ridge. There's a need to manage special events and construction traffic on both sides to address negative impacts to residents adjacent to roads used to access those events and construction. There's a recommendation that use of the Aspen Mountain gondola for transporting bicycles to the top of Aspen Mountain for descent on Little Annie and Midnight Mine roads on this side of the ridge be precluded because there's concern about the safety of inexperienced riders and increased recreational pressure on these roads and residents on this side of the ridge in particular. And then there's a recommendation too that Summer Road be the principal access for construction and service vehicular traffic associated with the Aspen Mountain ski area. Again, that's to keep impacts or at least consider impacts on the east side, or sorry, west side of the ridge. And if, you know what, if anyone has questions and wants to jump in, yeah, feel free, please. So then growth management has always been a really focal point for Pitkin County. And there are recommendations, of course, in the plan. Really, the principal change in terms of growth management is that the board has adopted a new policy direction, and it's looking at managing growth through the lens of climate change. And they actually developed this policy statement, which I'll read because it's really critical to so many components of this plan. Utilize growth management and the land use code to create an equitable, sustainable, and resilient regional quality of life, an economy for the future, and to meet our climate action objectives. And so that has become front and center, as I think as everyone on this meeting knows. Still front and center is preserving the existing character and managing growth impacts relating to roads, recreational capacity, water, quality of life, etc. in the area. But two other items that have come to front and center again, and have become more relevant in recent years, are short-term rentals and how we should address them. And that's something we'd love to get feedback from everybody on. We've heard some different perspectives on short-term rentals, pros and cons both. And we did have a recent, today, I heard from Ben Dodge, actually, who's on our call, who said, you know what, as far as short-term rentals go, how do the backcountry huts fit in here? This is an issue that's been raised in other jurisdictions, and I appreciate him bringing this to the forefront because we had not really thought about that in our discussions thus far. And the recommendation is they should be defined as something other than short-term rentals. And we will definitely put that in the mix and conversation moving forward. Also, transferable development rights have been in that program, has been a very successful program in the county. It's been in place for a while now, but we're just talking about, want to understand whether it's time to update that program. Is it still accomplishing its initial goals? Are larger homes still in character here? Are there greenhouse gas emissions, other climate action goals that may be in conflict? You know, should we be looking at that program again and just updating it? So that's another area where we'd love to have your input. Affordable housing is something that we are mandated to address in our master plans by the state, and the county has always supported affordable housing in this area in a more dispersed format. Format's not the right word. Dispersed configuration. The change to the 2003 plan is to really encourage the purchase and buy down of existing units, to promote affordable housing without increasing growth rates or impacts. Protection of water resources is so critical to the whole county. And as the Roaring Fork River runs through this planning area, it's something we're acutely aware of as a need for protection. And that hasn't changed significantly since 2003. Scenic regulations, this is one of the gateways to Aspen along the Independence Pass Highway 82 corridor. And so the scenic aspect has always been important, and there's a push to update our scenic standards, not only to allow for a reduction of development where necessary to preserve the scenic values along this corridor, but also to list some of the public roads as areas subject to scenic review that aren't currently listed. And listed here. So to Kevin's point, climate change and resiliency are front and center now. something that we really weren't thinking about in 2003. And the plan does make several recommendations to address both climate change and resiliency. And the county has adopted a climate emergency resolution. And we do have a climate action plan in place. And so we want to make sure that this plan and all of our plans really support both of those documents as they continue to evolve. And one of the principal directions that has recently been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners is to reduce our annual greenhouse gas emissions by 90% from 2020 levels by 2050, while preserving community character and equitably distributing policy impacts. So that's really critical. And again, we're going to be looking at a lot of different aspects of this plan through the lens of climate change. Resiliency is something that goes hand in hand with climate change, as we, again, as Kevin initially alluded to, we're seeing drought and warmer temperatures and changes to our snowpack. And we really need to be in front of that. And the plan makes several recommendations to stay in front of it to the extent we can. Wildfire has been in our lives a lot over the past couple of years. And so there's several recommendations for addressing wildfire and also encouraging residents to proactively engage in self-support measures to ensure their own safety in the event of wildfire and other natural disasters that we seem to be encountering on a more regular basis. So there's several recommendations in the plan relating to resiliency. Some more on this next slide. Basically, looking at flood, water supply, resilient infrastructure, and economic resiliency as all components that we need to be addressing to really move forward in light of climate change. Recreation, this area is heavily used for recreational uses, and we've heard a lot actually from the East of Aspen caucus on this topic. And our Open Space and Trails Board has developed a management plan for the North Star Preserve here in Greene. And we're aware of the fact that we really need to address impacts associated with the intense recreational use that everybody is seeing here and on the Forest Service. So there are several recommendations in the plan relating to addressing parking impacts, traffic, use of the river, enforcing regulations that we have on the books, rather than it's great to have signs up and make people aware of how they need to park and act, but without enforcement, those regulations don't function very well, apparently. So there's still a lot of work to be done and several recommendations in the plan for addressing recreation in the area. And I won't walk through all of these, but part of that discussion is also looking at the Little Lanny Richmond Ridge plan that Cindy Hubin referred to earlier, and whether that management plan, which speaks to recreational use and travel management, is still relevant or needs to be updated to address issues that have come into light more recently. And as part of that discussion, there's also a recommendation in the plan to preclude development of new ski areas that was in the 2003 plans. plan and is currently carried forward in this plan, but there's some discussion about whether expansion of terrain within permit boundaries should be allowed beyond current boundaries today. So that is definitely a part of the discussion in the plan that warrants further input. I think I walked through the process for plan adoption here. Really, our concern is that we do everything in our capability to get public input on these plans. They're living, breathing documents, and we really need to have feedback from the people who live and work and recreate in these areas. So some questions for you. We have such a small group here today, but would it be helpful to hold additional, at this point, they're going to be virtual public meetings for smaller groups, for the sub areas, the east of Aspen caucus area or the hunter smuggler areas, or is there a need to have any more public input via these virtual meetings before we move into the informal and formal Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of County Commissioner meetings? And I guess amongst this group, I don't know if again, we have such a small group here. Any feedback on that particular question, and or any comments, any input on anything else I've covered would be most appreciated.
Ellen, can we go back to zoning for a minute?
Sure, you want me to go back to that slide?
Oh, you don't need to.
Oh, okay.
I guess I was just surprised to see so much AR10 up above the valley floor. I'm assuming that 90% of that at least is federal land, but
You're talking about right here. Or,
yeah, it's pretty extensive. So, I mean, in my view, the AR10 ought to be on the valley floor and not extending up the slopes.
so one of the recommendations in the plan is to rezone public lands to that resource government zone district. And that's probably one of the areas we'd be looking at.
So it is all federal land.
I believe, yeah, I think all of the private land is in this area is along the highway corridor here. It's,
Okay.
It's mining. Well, there may be a smattering of mining claims. I'd have to go back to another map, but I think it is primarily federal lands in there. Yeah. And Kevin may be able to speak to that. Kevin Warner.
We are blessed with an amazing amount of patented mining claims spread through all kinds of different places across the forest in that valley. So I would be very surprised if it's entirely federal lands, but to Joe's point that it's probably in the 99% category. I think that's pretty easy to go along with. So
Yeah, but Joe, yeah, that's a good. So here, yeah, let's see. All of the brown is mining claims here, but that's up higher. I think most of this is.
Well, those should be rural and remote, shouldn't it?
Yeah, and they are, in fact. But this area here I think is the area we were looking at primarily. And
Yeah, a lot of sage green.
yeah, and those are primarily federal lands. So the recommendation, even in 2003, was to rezone those lands to that resource government zone. We just haven't quite gotten that accomplished yet, but it needs to happen. Any other thoughts, questions about either plan content or public outreach moving forward? Are we And if not, I will move to the how to submit comment if after this meeting you have the light bulb go off and go, oh, wow, yeah, there are some comments I'd like to make, especially Kevin Boru, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
We'd love to have your any comments you'd like to make now.
Well, most of my comments have to do with the larger ramifications of how the project affects the context of Aspen being situated in Colorado, being situated in the West. I don't have so many specific comments.
Okay.
I mean, if the environmental impact study came out and showed that it would not be environmentally deleterious, then I'd be all for Pandora. I think that's incredibly unlikely if you use the consensus conference criteria. I just want to get the consensus conference criteria into the mix of the discussion. And I think that if I send that to you, that will happen because you've been very open, to listening to me to say how out of date it is. And it really is the changing context of the environment as we speak. It's getting faster and faster. The heating of the West and the drying up of the major river supplies. The Colorado River has never been rationed until this year. First time in history.
Right.
Next year could be a drought year in Colorado. And there's not going to be any fewer fires in California. So let's just bring this all into a perspective that we realize that we don't exist separately from these other contexts, and then we'll be much smarter.
That's great insight. Thank you. And we will look forward to the
I will send it tomorrow morning.
yeah. And so here, Kevin, can you see the contact information here?
Yes, I will absolutely send it.
Okay. And we also, if you all talk to anybody who is interested in commenting offline, please give them, they can contact me, and if without having the details in front of you.
Well, I know a number of environmental scientists who are working on these issues who'd be very happy to talk to the specific issue locally as it relates to the global issue, and I can bring them in.
That would be excellent. And we can either set up a virtual meeting with them if they prefer, or if they want to submit written comments or submit written comments, that would be great. Comments or information that we should be considering.
Thank you. That's a wonderful, makes me feel wonderful that you say that.
Okay, and great. I'm glad to meet you.
Thank you.
And also we will have on our webpage here, we will have a Google Forms comment sheet if people prefer to have a more structured comment format, as opposed to just sending an email to me. So yeah, please spread the word. Cindy, do you have, I think it sounds as though, unless anybody has anything else to throw out there.
Actually, Ellen, if I can jump in real quick.
Oh, that would be excellent. Go
Great, and I'll be brief, Cindy, and then I'll go to you.
ahead.
Thanks for providing the opportunity to comment. And I think with Kevin Warner on the call, one of the things that I'm thinking about is there's such an opportunity here for the county to cooperate, collaborate, support U.S. Forest Service efforts to do some forest management work in the area around Aspen. And it seems like there have been some really successful collaborative projects already that have been done. I know there's several in the works that are coming up. And I wonder if there's a way to make sure that that level of collaboration continues, if we can provide for that in this master plan. It may already be in there and I just missed it. But I think that's a really important note. Having the huts, as we do, located on U.S. Forest Service lands, operated by special use permit, we have the perhaps unique experience of working very closely with the Forest Service and also with the county. And so we're aware of the interface because it affects what we do. It affects our hut customers as well. It affects their experience, whether it's forest conditions, whether it's parking, whether it's travel management, use of roads, all of these interfaces between county and Forest Service. There's so many places where those agencies convene. And so the idea of making sure that this is addressed in the master plan might be good. One of the thoughts that I had, this plan doesn't really address much in the way of winter specifically, and maybe it's not necessary to do that, but there's a number of things, whether it's trail use, road use, scenic qualities. The person could read this plan and figure that it all applies only to summer. That would be easy to make that, or not even think about winter. The winter environment is quite significant to our economy and what we do. And so whether you're looking at the scenic qualities of an untracked expanse of snow on a meadow, or whether it's travel management, those sorts of issues are important, I think, to address. It may be beyond the scope of this plan to do that. I was thinking about this a little bit more too, and Ellen, thank you for taking my comments, notes that I submitted earlier. One of the things I indicated there was, do we want to think at all about noise? We look at the scenic qualities of a place. We look at air quality. We look at water quality. Do we look at, well, I know we're already looking at the lighting, natural dark sky lighting. Do we look at noise? Is there a way to factor that into this plan? Very difficult to do. Perhaps it's worth taking a crack at it. And that's all I've got, other than to say thank you both for listening and providing the opportunity.
Oh, that's great. No one's actually brought up the concept of addressing noise, but how important is that? It's very. So thanks for picking that up, and we will look at the winter, to what extent we address the winter side of things, and collaboration in the Forest Service and the county and the 10th Mountain and One Huts. It's definitely a good.
One thing I realized too, I think I made a bit of a mistake earlier when I mentioned that it was just the Benedict huts. As I was looking at the map, this is quite extensive, and it actually includes not only the Benedict huts, there's 2 of those, but also the McNamara and Margie's huts are also in this master planning area. Didn't realize that till I was on the call. So thanks for walking through the presentation. That was very helpful and very useful.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for your comments. And thanks for putting him in writing. That helps. Anybody?
Ellen, I think, thank you for all that you showed us tonight and everybody's participation. Sometimes smaller groups are the best, and I've appreciated all the comments. And I guess I would throw back some questions to you all, who obviously have interest, either broad interest in the environment or specific localized interest, how you would give us advice on how to get more participation from either members of your caucus neighborhoods or your special interest groups, or Kevin Warner, how we might better interface with your plans over the next 6 months or so. So I'm kind of throwing it back at you guys, because we sincerely do want input, and I'm a little shocked really that more people from at least the top of the ridge kind of interests aren't participating more, given all the issues of late. But so just kind of wondering what any of you might think in terms of us getting better participation, how that might work.
Cindy, I thought that the Little Annie group was more engaged, but maybe they feel they've They've submitted their comments. Obviously, they would be really impacted by certain aspects of Pandora's. So I don't know. I haven't been copied on whatever it is that they've submitted, so I'm just not sure what they've given you already.
Yeah, that would be in the Pandora public record information, and I think Ellen may have put it into our website as well for what we've received, but we're happy to get you that, Joe. But yeah, it's a little different focus when you're looking at a specific application versus broader, as you know, master plan kind of look at the zoning interests, if you will. So
No, I'd love to see higher participation, but I haven't had much luck getting more people to engage.
yeah, okay,
So a small group in our neighborhood.
yeah, I know. There's only 9% of Castle Creek that's actually private land. You would think that every single person could show up, but it's hard.
Yeah, but there's so many mining claims. I mean, there's a large number of ownerships.
That's true. That's true. Well, that was just my plea for help on public participation, and we'll continue to call people and send out notices. But thank you all in advance for any help you can give us on that.
And you know what, I will, thanks Cindy. I will, since we still have Kevin Warner on the phone, to Cindy's point, are there any Forest Service plan updates, management plan updates in this area that we should be aware of in the next, within the next several months? Or
No, Ellen, I was gonna mention that, I mean, working with the 2002 forest plan or land and resource management plan is the most up-to-date document to utilize to look at kind of our Forest Service equivalent to what you're trying to do here.
right.
And so that's the best document for you. Obviously, the travel management plan plays into some of what I heard about as far as changing recreational use patterns and things with bikes and other things like that. So that would be a good plan to keep at your fingertips as well when you're looking at that. Those would be the two big planning documents that I would say are probably the best ones to look at. And then for increasing public participation, it's I will say that I cry a tear with you sometimes that it is not an easy thing to do to get the members of the public involved in the planning stages. You guys are right there with us. I held a public meeting for the Maroon Bell Snowmass Wilderness fee proposal a month ago, and I think I had a total of 6 people show up, and 3 of them were part of the child family. So that and 1 was from Wilderness Workshop. So it's just like it's really hard to pull folks together. So and it's unfortunate that when people normally come out of the woodwork is when you've already finished the planning and you're starting to do the implementation, and then they realize it. So as from the Forest Service standpoint, I will say that our plan would be to take a look at this in a little more depth and provide you guys with some written comments as well. Maybe reaching out, Ellen, depending on the need for questions and such, reaching out to do that as well, just to kind of give you our thoughts at this stage anyway. And then I'll just do someone from me or someone will do our best to try to participate in the public forums and such as much as we can to provide input and answer any questions from the Forest Service standpoint as well.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. That's super helpful. And yeah. All right, we'll look forward to those comments. And does anybody else have anything to add before we wrap here? If not, thank you, everybody, and we'll keep our webpage updated with next meetings, meeting dates coming up, and when we do get our Planning and Zoning Commission meetings and scheduled, we'll keep you apprised of that as well. Cindy, did you have something else? No?
I just wanted to thank everybody for showing up on a Monday and taking your time to join us. But please feel free to call us or give us feedback, and look at our website and advise other people to look at it too. But thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks, Alex.